Hello and welcome to Press Start Turbo, the second video game podcast ever.
What was the first one?
We're the second video game show ever. The first one was the G4 one where they kept giving review scores really low for Japanese games and doing racist voices.
This episode, we're getting into the weeds of sustainability of the video game industry. And to help us understand that a bit better, we talked to Xalavier Nelson Jr., the studio head over at Strange Scaffold. Then, to wrap things up, we're going to be talking about the cult classic vampire, the Masquerade Bloodlines. Joining me today is Billy, Ten, and Julian.
Yeah. Yippee.
Welcome to the show, guys.
Yippee. Let's talk about
Glad I got through that all in one take and no interruptions. Anyway, to start, I feel like we should talk about some of the other games we've been playing.
Let's do the cell one more time.
Oh, God.
Yeah, this time without buzzers that barely work.
Yeah, this time it'll work.
So we're just going to go through everybody, see what everybody's been playing. We're just going to talk about it for 2 minutes. Everybody's got 2 minutes on the dot to fucking talk about what they've been playing. So I've been playing Inscryption because of the last episode we did on genre bending in games, and I try, guys. I fucking try new things. And I try new games. I've tried Inscryption, and you know what? I really fucking liked it. I really liked the card game aspect. And then I hit Act 2, and then I hit Act 3.
Yeah.
I agree with Cameron 100%. That game
Vindicated.
kind of...
So I wasn't there for this. So Cameron, you got a lot of shit for this?
I feel like there was other shit I got in that. Because that episode we talked about Kenshi, and that kind of overshadowed the shit I got for not liking Inscryption.
Yeah.
Well, it's crazy how based you guys are for only liking the first third of that game, and the other two they're fucking bad.
Okay, there's a lot of good. It's just that to me personally, I just feel like after Act 1, I just wanted to play Act 1 again. Act 2 is okay.
Yes.
Mechanically, Act 2 is...
It feels like they keep adding new mechanics to a card game that I thought was just perfect. Like, it was just enough depth, just enough, like, mechanics to keep it always interesting, and then you hit the point where there's bombs, not bombs, fucking gems and bones and this and that, and it's like, I don't know if that was necessary. I don't know if, like, these card synergies don't feel like they feel good with the rest. And also, I'm going to be honest, story is super corny. If you're going to do cursed video game find in the forest, if you're you have to be really fucking on point because that has been done to death, and I just do not think it does the cut. One thing, though, it's
you're never gonna
executed
survive
perfectly.
this one.
No, it's executed perfectly, and that's my 2 minutes.
You know, I'll agree with that. The reveal was very well done. It's just that the everything after the reveal was like pulling...
Shut up! If you want to talk so bad, how about you fucking do your 2 minutes?
Okay. I play Motorstorm.
Banger!
And it was awesome. I'm making a video on it with Ed. We're making a video about Motorstorm and the studio that made it. And so I've been doing nothing but playing a bunch of fucking Motorstorm and then other games that are contemporary to it, like rally games and shit. And I am so fucking blown away because I really expected them to be a little bit crusty. It's been a while since I'd gone back to them, but oh my fucking god, no one did it like them.
I got a copy of Motorstorm at a fucking thrift store super recently, and I put it in, and I was like, I'm gonna relive I know it's gonna be a bit weird, I know it's gonna be a bit aged, but then as I played it, I was like,
it's not.
It was just like, oh, they knew what they were fucking doing, huh?
Dude, you know what really
good.
What really hit me in the face with that one is when I went back to play their earlier games on the PS2, and they just did a bunch of, like, they did the WRC games, the official rally games, and oh my god, those are also really fucking good. Like I'm pretty only Colin McCree was like as good as those at like what they were trying to do. They were pulling some shit that I couldn't fucking believe was in a 2005 video game with that last one the last one they named after themselves. It's called WRC Evolved, and the studio is Evolution Studios. It's very cheeky. But But yeah, no, they start throwing hazards on the road. Like people who you're racing up against will just break down and in the middle of the track, and you have to avoid them. And there's a call out for it that happens a second before they come up. Like there are animals that will sometimes just be on the track, and you have to not run over them. It feels like they were looking at every single like scary rally video on YouTube wherever some crazy shit is narrowly avoided, and they're like, man, why isn't that in gaming? That's fucking awesome. And it is. And then they made Motorstorm in 1 year.
You're done. 2 minutes off. 2 minutes off. You're done. Cameron.
Yo, I've been playing a little old game that's blown up a bit called Manor Lords. It is a strategy city builder. It is medieval. It's insane the amount of, like, it's early access as well. This game is made by one developer. He's been working on it for, I believe, 5 years. Called Slavic Magic. It's incredible.
You want to know how I learned about this game? Just really quick. I learned about this game because one time after recording and Mandy just opened it and was like, you guys need to check this out. It's and then
That's
it was
how
just
I found out about it as well.
Oh wait, you were there. What the
yeah,
fuck?
I was there.
It was after Perilous. That's right.
I watched him play it for a bit. I was like, this looks kind of awesome and epic.
It's impressive
as someone
as fuck.
who's got a few hours in City Skyline, it kind of is if they made that game
ye old
and also more of a game in a way, because it has like it's got the elements of like, you know, you're going through the Age of Empires, like building up your settlements and stuff, but you have to like really like care about supply lines and like how much your resources are. And then there's like even I haven't even gotten much into it, but there is like a actual battle system and large scale battles, and you're like doing all this really cool stuff. It's a beautiful game as well.
Oh no, it's ridiculous. When you have your little lord going around your little town, it's like, oh my god.
It's also ridiculous how polished this game is for how early. Well, there is a lot of like issues with the game for sure, but like it works incredibly well. Like even the system of how you like do plots, and they can be in like these weird angles, and then they'll actually build to fill in these angles, and it just looks really amazing. Like this is a game that's done grid systems that no other city builder has been able to really like do. And it's insane. And
that's
really
interesting.
Cool.
Shut the fuck up.
Baseball.
I finished.
Fuck you.
Horrible news. The only game I've been playing for the past like month and a half probably has just been MLB The Show. Because I'm a big. We're in the middle of baseball season, Julian. Don't laugh at me. Big baseball enjoyer over here.
This guy enjoys baseball.
I do a lot actually. Sometimes I watch baseball while I'm playing MLB The Show, Julian.
I've seen him do that.
He's seen me do it.
That's so crazy.
One of his eyes like looks at the real baseball, the other the fake baseball.
No, it's an easy game to boot up and just play for any amount of time. You're like getting me to sell a yearly sports release game.
Yeah, but it's interesting to talk about because I mean, you say that like it's not interesting, but I do genuinely think it's interesting because
I know.
let's be real.
As someone who doesn't know anything about the show, you could spend your remaining minute to just explain why you like it. That is valid and allowed, and I smile.
I'm a big fan of career modes in sports games. MLB
That's what I was going to ask.
It's got the best one.
Is it like one of those RPGs?
It's a pseudo RPG one. You get gear.
What?
It does shit. Yeah, there's gear score, Julian.
No fucking wait. Stop.
There's not actually gear score, but it does give you stat buffs.
For a second, I was like, no fucking
RPG.
way.
No, it's easy to just like
fucking gear score, dude.
Tune out and just like kind of play it in the background, just because the way baseball as a sport is structured it's really fucking boring and you don't really do it.
Well, you're really selling me on this,
man. You can just knock out a shit. No. So here's the thing, Julian. Baseball's exciting like 5% of the time.
Man,
and MLB The Show for the like career mode cuts out the 95% of your guy just standing around. It's like, all right, you're at bat. All right, you're at bat. Oh, hey, you might do something cool on this play, so play this play. And you just go through it, and you just be a little guy, and you just be way too good at the game because you don't want to turn the sliders up, because I'm not trying to actually be good at the game. I'm trying to be the best at the game.
Whoa, guess what? We're done. Thank God. That was awful.
All right.
Let's
see you guys next episode.
I never want to hear anyone talk about things they like again after that.
Everybody brought a game they liked, and I just brought a game I enjoyed until...
It was fine. Move on.
I would give it a 7 out of...
All right. We're moving on to talk about the main topic this episode, which is sustainability in video games.
Yes.
And when I say sustainability, there's a few like different avenues you can go down when you're talking sustainability in video games. I would like to separated into kind of 3 prongs. One of them, which we're not going to cover, which is environmental sustainability, which is like a very interesting topic to go into around video game development.
I'm punching the air, dude. I love the environment.
The other 2 that we're going to be focusing on this episode, I would say, is economic sustainability and then also labor sustainability within the games industry. And these 2 things have been under strain, I would say, in the last few years, and very visibly so, to the point where anyone with a passing knowledge of video games has kind of noticed these effects, because they bear out in the games that are developed, and not just in how they are being developed, even though that is kind of the reason why they're coming to these hits. So yeah. Where do we want to start, guys? It's kind of a hard topic to broach. What's
you don't say.
It is very hard. It almost feels impossible. We've tried to do our own research. We've tried many angles to get what we can. We are going to mention when we go into assumptions, but for the most part, this is research that we found. Research papers we're going off of, like what we found. The links are going to be in the description of the podcast if you want to check out all the stuff that we found.
Yeah, or at least check out what you can. Some of it was, gated behind shit.
Yeah,
we love free and open access to information.
It's awesome. Love the internet, but this is not about that.
Yeah.
Let's talk. How about fuck it? Like, I mean, because the thing is, right? It's one thing feeds into the other, feeds into the other, feeds into the other. So when if we talk about the economic stress, it's always going to land back into labor. The labor problems are going to go land back into it's literally Ouroboros.
It's very difficult not to just get into circular discussions whenever you delve into stuff like this, because it's all related and everything affects everything else, and it's a nightmare.
But guys, my quadruple A video game,
the first ever, dude. The first
ever. Don't look at Skull and Bones. Don't look at Perfect Dark.
Hey, Perfect Dark's not come out yet. So
I put so much money into this that if it's not the most highest grossing piece of media ever in human history, my studio is going to go under. My parents' studio is going to go under. I think that they're just going to start closing whatever they feel like and probably kill my family.
My actual parents' studio is going to go under.
Yeah, my studio apartment
is going to get flooded.
But the financial stability stuff, I'm going off of a wild rumor of a leak. Isn't the budget for GTA 6 supposed to be billions of dollars?
I don't know, man.
I wouldn't be surprised, but this is all that's hearsay.
That's conjecture.
Yeah,
I don't even think I used that word right.
No, you used that actually correctly.
The first one to do it. Holy shit,
dude! Get me on the prosecutor stand,
listeners. This is what journalism sounds like. If this isn't what you hear whenever you listen to other people talking about things that matter, then you need to stop listening, because this is what it should be like.
Your trusted journalist should be saying allegedly, and I heard, and I think so all the time.
And immediately following it up by saying, I think I used that word correctly.
Salt of the earth, Julian.
For the GTA usage, it's the budget for GTA 5 was $265 million, which was double the GTA 4's $100 million production costs, and then the revenue of GTA 5 was $7.7 billion.
Can you look at what the budget of Red Dead 2 was? Because I'm sure it would be very normal and not illustrate a trend upwards.
I can look that up for you.
Let's have a little look.
That was a cool video game. I like that game.
It is. I think it was really necessary. Every part of it, actually.
I agree. Unironically.
So what we're kind of getting at here is it's kind of like a general feature creep in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Where every game needs to top the game that came before it, or else it's not justified, because the assumption is that the bigger the game is, the more money it's going to make, which is a very interesting one, because it's not true.
But
I would say.
The idea is that the more you invest, the more potential returns there are.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've spoken with developers who I can't name who have told me that, in multiple instances, even on the, this affects indies directly too. I couldn't believe this the first time I was told it, but if you are an indie these days trying to get your game greenlit, first of all, good fucking luck. Second of all, oh my fucking god, you can't scope it. You actually can't, because most investors are not interested in a small scale production.
Yep.
Again, I can't name any names, but I've been shown multiple video games that after, getting a really successful like demo or whatever, or like making it big on Twitter or whatever it is, they land a publisher deal. Suddenly they go really silent for a while. And it's because behind the scenes, the only reason they were approved is because that $100,000 they needed to get made, or I mean, hell, 10,000, whatever it is, whatever the budget was, it skyrocketed into $500,000, $1 million, $2 million, because that's what investors want, because that's an actual return. That's the only way to get it approved.
We talked with Atify about their game in a previous episode, and we just go over literally that.
Yep.
And it's crazy how it's all about, okay, but a small project won't have a big return. And right now, the current trend is bigger budgets, bigger returns, a lot of risk, lot of reward.
Yes. And you can, the thing about that though, is they still expect the same amount of revenue to cost percentage, right?
Yeah.
They expect the same amount of return on their investment. So it needs to sell even more copies and even more stuff. So with that, their expectations of what the game, like how much is in the game relative to how much it's going to sell, is increased exponentially. Even though like the budgets might be higher, the expectations on the developers are even more heightened, even though like, assumably you're getting more money, which means you get to hire more people and the like labor is spread out more. But like with the realities of like what these project sizes are looking like and like what you're actually asking these people to do, one, it's gonna like inevitably mean there's more issues within the development cycle and more problems are gonna come up. And there, so the time frames get like incredibly wacky because you're spending way longer fixing problems. But it also means that things like crunch and any kind of like developer fatigue and stuff like that are way more likely in these larger teams, because it's like you're going to just because of the reality of what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Like video game development is not easy by any means. Like even on smaller games, like and you just think about the moving parts within these like behemoths to actually make these things come out the other end and be polished.
It's ridiculous.
The core of a lot of this, at least from what I can tell, can be boiled down to the fact that most investors these days, I mean, not even these days, most investors in this space historically do not care about sustainability. They care about growth, which is a fundamentally different thing.
The problem is growth cannot, there's a moment where you can't grow anymore.
Nuh-uh.
They call it sustainability.
Sorry, you know what? You're right.
There's also an old adage, which is from the tech sector and has absolutely weaseled its way into video game development, called "move fast and break things." Which
that was from Facebook, who started that one up. That was like their motto for a while.
That was their motto, and it's one that a lot of these development like executives have really taken to heart. And basically the idea is that you don't care about the long-term consequences of your actions because you want to make as much money in the short amount of time as possible. You're looking at the short-term returns on your...
You are boiling it down a little bit.
Yes.
The idea a little more broadly. I'm still going to butcher this, but to try to give it a little bit more nuance, if I can possibly, I'm going to try. The idea, especially in terms of, where it came from with the whole Facebook thing, was that if you can, in Silicon Valley especially, if you can, and God, do investors love this word, disrupt the market.
I'm going to vomit.
If you can disrupt the market, then it doesn't necessarily matter in the short term whether you have a really good product, because if you're the first one to get there and it provides value to the consumer that wasn't previously there, then you can get a foothold before anybody else. Being there first is better than being the best one, because if you're the best one but you arrive second, then everyone is already using your competitor, which got there first. And so this is where things like blitz scaling come from, the idea of just like massively scaling up your company so that you can, strong arm out any competition who is trying to do things in a slower way. This isn't an artifact of the video game industry so much as an artifact of the way that Silicon Valley has and the internet have irreparably changed the way that business is conducted with Fortune 500 companies.
What I think we're trying to get at is that there has been a kind of ad hoc implementation of management systems. I found this when researching from a article that went and it'll be linked in the description. You have to have a university login to get to it, but whatever. It was interviewed a bunch of game developers about the implementation of a system called Agile, which is a software engineering, it's like management system. It's a pipeline basically of how it works.
If you've heard about Scrum, it's one of those. It's
one of those.
The idea is to translate the way that software development pipelines work into a management style, kind of, sort of. We are massively oversimplifying here, but to give you an idea, that's kind of what it's like.
But this quote from it, I think, kind of puts it, I guess, in perspective. And quote, "At present, there are neither commonly accepted best practices nor mature process models for video game development, which has led to studios using diverse, fragmented, and improvised development practices, which are often misattributed to being agile. These factors are thought to be contributing significantly to the industry's multidisciplinary project management and team dynamic problems, as well as the high project failure rates," end quote. So you can see they're trying to use a one-size-fits-all approach to a development system that takes a bunch of different disciplines, whether it be coding, art, writing, all these things, and kind of mashing it together and being like, well, this should work. Instead of taking a more holistic approach, or like actually taking a look at what the development process is and the best way to actually get the end product you want, they're just trying to like, okay, well, this worked in this other thing and they're kind of similar, so we should just use this system. And that has like led to a lot of the issues I think we see in game development and the way developers are kind of treated within the industry.
Again, we must stress that we are being extremely reductive here for the sake of time and not getting muddled down in the details. What we're providing is not exactly what the research said. This is our interpretation of what we found. Please do not take this as gospel. But yeah, you're right.
It's more to like bring it to the attention of people so that they can all, you can check it out. This is more to bring it to people's attention. It's more to bring it to you guys.
And it's not to say that there aren't places where it does work or where people have found success with it, because obviously there have been games made under these like systems. I just see that they're a general like sustainability issue within the industry from not, I guess, looking within and how these things are being made has led to a lot of issues with whether it be burnout or crunch or even like turnover rates, which the video game industry and software development in general, honestly, has an incredibly high turnover rate for what is a relatively well-paying like job. Like you would see in most other industries, if you're being paid a certain amount, not this high of a turnover rate.
Yeah.
But there is, because of the externalizing pressures that are put on developers.
We don't have a source for that, but I mean, all of us can independently say developers have in confidence told us that is the reason multiple times. So this is going to be a trust me bro moment, but for real though.
We did also, like we've said in the past, had interviews where people have talked about this. So if you'd like to learn more about that, you can always check out some of our other interviews with independent developers.
I would like to bring up, because right before recording, I didn't, I don't do the research for these. Cameron showed me the agile thing, and it kind of blew my mind and made me shit my pants a little bit.
Yep. Because
people who have followed me for a while will know that I've been working on a Halo video on and off for years now. The reason that it has never come out is because it's not a review of the game anymore. It's just like a story of how the game's development went and how it turned out the way it did. And lo and behold, that's complicated. And so it's extremely hard. And I've spoken to a lot of developers in confidence whose names I can't share, but a pattern emerged from their shared experiences that mapped perfectly onto the study that Cameron had shown me. I don't. Sorry, I'm stuttering trying to think about how to describe this. Make me sound awesome in post.
Stuttering makes you sound smart, actually, as someone
double his stutter.
Add reverb. Whoa. If there's one thing that manifested itself as a recurring theme with every single developer who I spoke to who worked at 343. It was that communication was a primary source of conflict. And I mean that in terms of just, tension with deadlines and miscommunication, but also like on occasionally actual conflict. Like because of a system that was used, which is like a variation of Scrum, and it was really doubled down upon post-launch. Don't quote me on that. Need to double check. But because that was a general management style implemented at 343, it resulted in what some developers have gone on record describing as working in silos, creating multiple different video games that feel completely different from each other, all at the same time, jockeying for power over which way everyone should go.
Oh
that
my
sucks.
god.
It was
That's
nightmarish.
awful. Yeah, that sounds absolutely
I spoke to people who spent months working on things that had to be completely scrapped because a mechanic was changed that rendered all of it useless. Or
oh my gosh.
And that in and of itself isn't necessarily unusual in the AAA space, but the frequency in which it happened was what was really shocking. Is that like this was a recurring thing that happened to like most of the people I spoke to, is that they had to throw out a lot of work. The other thing, Cameron, when you mentioned turnover rate as cited as being an issue for these as well, was that directly related to these management techniques, or was that you going out on a limb?
No, this is like something that is like actually well documented in terms of like video game development.
Because I wanted to know how you would feel if I told you that over like significantly more than 50% of 343's workforce pushing towards release for like that like year and a half or more was made up of contract workers who could only stay there for 1.5 years due to their contract terms, and then had to be fired. Which essentially turned the entire studio into a revolving meat grinder of talent.
that
with
would
an
fuck
unbelievable
shit up
retention problem. Yeah, because by the time people have learned the systems, they're already a significant portion of time through their tenure with the studio.
Especially because a lot of the pipelines, at least from when I did an internship in a AAA studio, a lot of the pipelines like they take a while to learn because everybody uses.
With Halo, it was uniquely bad.
Yes,
was it?
This is a wider issue. There was a survey done by the IATSE in 2023, and one of the results was 57% of those surveyed said that the average years of industry experience among developers who participated was 6.9 years, with less than half of the respondents working for 7 or more years in the industry, which, that sounds like a long time. But if you think about the actual like how long the video game industry has been around for and the average length of employment in like other people in other industries, that is incredibly short of a career trajectory.
People go to college for this,
Yes.
and then they dip out after less than a decade.
Yes. So you think about this industry, which is like severely lacking senior level developers. Like you talk about the revolving door at 343 during this period. Who is doing all of the onboarding? Like, who is
That's the fucking question.
that's teaching these contractors how to actually engage with their systems, which have probably been in development for years and years and have changed drastically from whatever their base was. Like, even if you're working under Unreal or any of these like development like softwares that are like supposedly universal, they're going to have their own quirks and like different ways in which things work, and you just don't have this like knowledge base.
It's funny you say that. I was told in confidence by multiple people that at multiple points throughout Halo Infinite's development, they considered just dipping their proprietary tools and moving to Unreal because people who are coming in would at least have an easier time learning those tools.
There's a reason why people use those tools,
but the sunk cost had already reached such a point with the development of their own in-house tools that it wasn't something that they could justify because they would have to develop all those tools again for Unreal.
Yep. Okay. Cool.
That said, I have also heard rumors that whatever the next Halo game is, if the one that is rumored to be a thing it actually does happen, which I don't fucking know, it will be in Unreal. Right. This is leaked information provided by other people. Do not cite me as that, because that's not something I can personally confirm or corroborate at this moment.
But it not only just like affects the development cycle in that way, it also I think, this is my opinion, but I would imagine it would negatively impact people first getting into the industry as well.
Yeah.
Because it dilutes the job pool in a way where, like, if you have a lack in senior development, the only like roles that you need to like cover will be those senior roles, rather than there being a lot of roles for junior developers to actually start learning. Because in order to teach a junior developer, you need a senior developer to like take them through the systems. Otherwise, what are you doing?
Now factor into this the cool thing that a lot of studios do, especially smaller ones, art house type shit, but this is a universal thing. A lot of studios and management techniques love to tout the "we only hire senior talent" thing.
Oh, okay. That's
famously Naughty Dog, from my understanding.
Which is, I don't know, perchance. Either way, unbelievably flawed.
yeah.
Because what you end up with is a bunch of people who are used to leadership who now all have to share. And I mean, more broadly than that, I don't know. Fucking, that's a whole other topic, so we don't really need to get into it. But I think you could pretty easily sum it up by asking anyone ever to name one project that is really good because only senior people worked on it.
It doesn't mean much as long as you have a team of both. You
just need strong leadership.
Good.
That's it.
Yeah, you just need somebody who's a leader.
I mean,
which
also,
was an issue when I was doing my internship, because the person who showed me the tools to work with the audio pipeline they had at that studio was also a junior. And I would have been cool. He was basically like, so it's like Fmod, but it's not like Fmod, because we made this here, and also that doesn't work like that, and I don't know how to fix this, so you're gonna have to send a message to this guy who made the tool, and then he'll answer you if he's. It's like, oh my god, how do you not fucking go crazy,
dude?
How do you not go absolutely insane?
We live in a nightmare world.
There's a reason that internship made me never want to do fucking audio in video games.
There are so many people, who I've spoken to who are just like, yeah, I spent like 2 years and I was like, oh god, no, fuck this.
I spent like 3 months, dude. I was out.
I mean, just to bring it back to like the ballooning project sizes and stuff like that, a lot of this happened recently because of COVID.
Yeah.
There was a uptick in game sales and revenue during 2020 because everyone was at home. And the game industry reacted by just dumping a shitload of money into hiring and scaling up studios, because I don't understand. I guess the expectation was that the growth was just going to continue after we got out of lockdown, which seemed like an insane...
If everyone's home, they can all game.
I honestly didn't even think about that, inflating video game sale numbers in that year.
They were probably betting on COVID never ending.
No,
I'm kidding. That was a joke.
Realistically, I think we can speculate all day. One of the more likely theories that I have is that there's a good chance they were betting on reaching new people, because if you're cooped up in your house, you might give gaming a try, and then you have new audiences who otherwise wouldn't have been attracted.
Yeah.
Which, obviously worked out great. But I mean, there are countless reasons they might have done it. Who fucking knows?
But yeah, this is one of the reasons why we're seeing so many layoffs. There's a numerous factors, but like this is one of the reasons cited. I remember seeing, and it's kind of puts to bear the reason behind it when you see. I remember, what was her name? Sarah Bond, I believe it is. She's I think it's like some role at Xbox, but after they announced that they were laying off or closing down the studios of Tango Gameworks and Arcane and what was the other one? There was one more.
If you can't remember their name, then they don't matter.
True. Not true. Don't quote that.
Not true. That's not right. Come on.
But she's like giving a non-answer about like why they're closing studios, even though they made like successful games. And then the shot, instead of a 2-shot, it pans back and it shows them in this big room, and above her is the revenue for Xbox, and you can see it jump in 2020, and then in 2022 it keeps going up, and then in 2023 it's still way higher than it was in 2019, but it's slightly lower than 2022.
No!
No! You can kind of see the snap reactions these executives are kind of making to bite back that revenue share for their...
If we aren't growing, then what are we doing?
Yeah, but like the result in that is that you lay off a shit ton of people.
Yeah.
And then you look at that, and then the majority of these people laid off, I won't say majority, but a lot of the people who are being laid off don't want to get back into the video game industry after they lose their jobs.
Yeah.
And it's kind of really understandable.
No, it's okay though, Cameron. It's okay because fresh meat will always be there, and we can put them in the meat grinder instead. They're fresh out of college, and they're awesome.
who's gonna teach them the pipeline?
I don't know. They'll figure it out.
ChatGPT.
Shut up!
I'm giving them ideas, Julian. Computer, make a video game.
And that's, that comes back to the Ouroboros of it. And I think there's this assumption, because it is an art form and game developers are incredibly passionate about the work that they're doing. They're probably, if you've got any art form, you feel like you have like kind of more of a like stake in things, because your heart's more in it, and you really want things to succeed and stuff like that.
To do your best work, you kind of need to pour a lot of yourself into your work, especially. Yes. And this goes for anything that you care about, really. But it's much more likely to be something that you are encouraged to do and will want to do in a creative field. I say this because, I don't want to discount, say, a programmer who works on the back end of Spotify or some shit. Those are also incredibly talented people who, who are working on coding, which is in and of itself a kind of art. But whenever you dip into something purely creative based on entertainment, it's much more easy to get personally attached to your work, because you're using much more of your own aesthetic sensibilities, or in the case of more technical stuff, you're working with a lot of people who are still, you're working on something that's entertainment. It's easy to be invested.
But yeah, it just comes back to that of like, I think there's this assumption at a corporate level that they will always have meat for the grinder because of that passion that people have, and the fact that because of that passion, you're willing to put up with a lot of bullshit, like a lot of like crunch, a lot of terrible labor practices, no career pathways, and burning out in 7 years. But like, you're going to do it because you love making video games, and this is the thing that you want to do. Yeah. And I just think we're seeing that there is a limit to that a lot of the time, because there's only so many stories people are going to hear about how terrible it is to like the actual process of making video games can be, and how terrible the industry is, before people just say it's not worth it.
Cameron, I at one point I was speaking to a developer who told me that they were uncomfortable with telling me about some of their negative experiences in the industry, both imposed upon them and self-imposed, because they were worried that if people heard these stories, they would be discouraged from going into the video game industry. And they were really worried about that, and so they didn't want him to tell them about their negative experience.
Yeah.
The level of Stockholm Syndrome present in this industry is fucking crazy.
Yep.
To end it on a slightly better note, because, it is pretty shit.
This was a lot of negativity, but there's always like I don't think anybody here is not hopeful for the future. We've seen a lot of really good steps being taken, unionizing efforts.
We're in that part of the podcast again, everyone. Where we say unions are fucking awesome.
You know what type of podcast this is.
I know. I'm just being a
video game.
It's a video game podcast where we care about everybody in this fucking industry. We want everybody to strive, everybody to make cool shit.
I care about people who make awesome stuff, personally.
I care about labor unions.
Yeah.
Why?
Because they're awesome.
You know what? You've won me over.
We love collective bargaining.
Either way, all that to say, we are hopeful.
Yeah. It can be hard lately. I have a bad feeling things are going to get a lot worse before they get better.
Yeah.
If there's one thing that history has shown us, it's that the worse workers are treated, the more likely they are to start pushing back.
And surprise, surprise, are.
We're going to hit a fucking breaking point at some point, man. It's got to happen.
Yeah.
When are game devs going to turn into like actual, real, genuine rednecks? The guys with the handkerchiefs? They got a end it there.
All right, with that,
No, we're not doing that.
There's reason to be hopeful, and in the interview that's about to play, we go over some of those. And after that, we're going to be talking about Vampire.
The Masquerade Bloodlines.
Yeah.
Welcome to the interview portion for Press Start Turbo. Joining us today is Xalavier Nelson Jr. He's worked on over 90 games in the last 8 years, from indie to AAA, in roles ranging from designer to producer to writer and beyond. Among other things, he runs the game studio Strange Scaffold, which released the throwback slow-motion shooter El Paso Elsewhere last year, and is launching Life Eater, a horror fantasy kidnapping sim. Thank you for joining us, Xalavier.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I just want to say, by the time this releases, I'm pretty sure...
Yes.
If everything goes well, Life Eater should be out. I know you guys are in the thralls of development right now, so thank you for carving out some time for us as well for that. I'm sure it's real busy.
Absolutely. The pleasure is mine, and yeah, based off of when this is supposed to go out, Life Eater sure will be a game that exists and that it is in people's hands. We are locked in for April 16th. I am vaguely terrified, but when am I not?
That's game dev.
That's game development,
yes,
baby.
I was going to say, I just wanted to make sure people get to know you a little bit more and just like your history. I want to know what made you want to get into game development and what was your entry point into game dev?
What made me want to get into game development was honestly just a deep, deep love for the medium. I realized pretty early how special games are and how when you have different conditions that lead up to a game, the game itself changes. Game design says, hey, you change one icon on a screen, it changes a player's experience. I found pretty early that the same was true of a production cycle. So at a early age, I knew I wanted to be a part of game development for that love of games and everything that they could be. When I was roughly 12 years old, how I got into the industry was I was precocious, shall we say, and homeschooled, which meant I had time. And I found out that games journalists get games for free. And I said, that's the objective best job that anyone has ever had. I need to become a games journalist as soon as possible. So I pretended to be an adult on the internet, and I've been here ever since.
You don't know this about me? I did the exact same fucking thing.
Hell yeah.
I actually did the exact same thing. That's so funny.
That's crazy.
When you learn that free games are to be had.
Oh yeah, and you have no money of your own. Oh baby, it's you will learn very quick how to write emails.
One of my greatest professional faux pas, again, happened when I was like 14 years old. I saw that a PR representative for a company I was trying to get in touch with for review copies, he was a big fan of cats and of kittens. And because he was not replying to my emails, well, my broken neurodivergent 14-year-old brain thought would be a hilarious way for me to get his attention and kind of josh with him was to write in the subject line, every minute you don't answer this, a kitten dies.
Oh my god.
I'm probably still a story that person tells to this day.
How did you transition from a kid online, I assume hopefully writing about games to get review copies for games, to someone working actively within game development?
So because the Enthusiast Press was more so a thing then than it is now, there's not as many, I think, small hobbyist sites as there used to be. Now it's more so content creation. So there's a lot of streamers and YouTubers out there, but not so many people who run their own blog. And because they're afraid of getting sued as a 12-year-old, are doing MS Paint screenshots of the game to create custom renditions of what the game plays like so that you don't get in legal trouble, because I didn't realize that I can just use the screenshots available online. Going from that and to getting review copies was fairly simple. I did my first few reviews and then I started asking for codes, and people were very kind enough to give me codes, and I did my damnedest to evaluate the games fairly, and I learned a lot about the medium and about the people who made them along the way. Sam Barlow was one of my early interviews when I started to branch out into interviewing people. I interviewed Tim Donnelly, who was, I believe, the lead artist for Planescape Torment. Just a lot of stuff started to happen, and because of the roughly 5-year life cycle of a developer or someone who works in the games industry, my 5 years wasn't from like 25 to 30 and now I'm burnt out of games. I was from 12 to 17 saying every person who I am around in games suffers by touching this thing. It is a machine that breaks people on the press side and on the development side, and player experiences get hurt in the process. And I said, I'm gonna move on from my childish era. I will pursue new things. So I was going to make a talk, giving a talk at AlterConf Paris in, I believe, 2017. It was going to be the last thing I did as a games journalist, and the title of the talk was why I will no longer be a games journalist. And so I was, in the 14 days before that talk, I said I'm going to make a game as well to really put an end cap on that part of my life and move on to the next thing, because I was already getting opportunities to be a children's librarian. That was what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a librarian. I was bringing joy to children and to families' lives. If you told me today that I could walk into the woods away from video games and be a librarian again, I might still do it. In the process of making that game, my very first game, All Hail the Spider God, I was like, damn, they got me. Because I loved the process of making games, and people liked that, and I kept making more Little Twine games. I got the chance to work on other people's games, and pretty soon, it's been a whirlwind 8 years from then, but I've now had the opportunity to work on some of the biggest franchises, some of the biggest companies in the world, direct several video games. I think I've directed like 14 now. Released 12 through my studio Strange Scaffold. Now, if you include Life Eater, which at the time of recording comes out in a week.
We could put it in there, you know? It's going to be out by now.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But yeah, I basically saw that the games scene was a machine that eats people, and that doesn't particularly care about what it loses in the process for either the players or the people who make players' favorite experiences. And where I landed was saying, this is a machine that eats people, but one, it doesn't have to stay that way. And two, that doesn't mean that you can't, as it were, make a living between the jaws and teeth of the beast, building experiences that are meaningful to people's lives.
I want to dive deeper into that and just go back to like, what were some of the conclusions that you came to regarding like sustainability in video games and how that beast works from your time working in the industry?
Oh, geez. That's a big question.
I know.
The biggest thing I'd say is so much of the things I've found being on the inside of games is that, quite frankly, developers are fighting very hard inside of their environments to advocate for players and player experiences, and they're beholden to a market that does not wish to follow the processes that will give players the games that they're asking for. So, as an example, there's all sorts of legacy franchises owned by various companies that people have been saying, man, I really wish that came back. Why isn't someone making something like that? And what you learn as you become a developer and continue to operate in these circles is, a sequel got pitched to that 3 times. A spiritual successor was in development for that 4 years ago, but it got canned because not because it wouldn't make money, but because it was judged that it wouldn't make enough money. Every time we get a $100 million, $200 million, $300 million game, what we are choosing to not make in the process, and by we, I mean the industry at large, not developers. Developers would love to make games of different sizes and scopes that are what they need to be to give players the best experience possible with as little exploitation of their players as well as the developers who make that. The industry at large, though, we saw Warner Brothers Discovery make the announcement that after Suicide Squad did not give them the results they wanted, and after Hogwarts Legacy was, I believe, to date their best-selling game, as well as one of the best-selling games of all time.
Yeah, I think it was the best-selling game of that year as well.
A single-player RPG. Warner Brothers Discovery said, yeah, we're going all in on games as a service. They not listening to the players, not listening to the developers, just right on because, again, it's judged that it wasn't making enough money. So as far as sustainability, yeah, like you learn about all sorts of things getting canned and canceled and sacrificed at the altar of let's make another $300 million game. And I love that $300 million games can't exist. They are a stunning example of a huge amount of work coming together to build something that literally could not exist even, say, 5-10 years ago. That has resulted in an environment where basically every studio and every developer is constantly operating on a knife's edge. Not only can they not say, hey, this game would be profitable if we made it for $10 million instead of $100 million. And it's like, well, if we can't make it for $100 million, we won't make it. Not only are they facing conditions like that, but on the player end, one of the most prominent things that we're observing, and you can see it happening every day, is that if a game comes out and doesn't make all of the money in the world immediately, then the developer doesn't get to keep living so that they can build their next best game. And I think Larian is an amazing example of this. They got to make Baldur's Gate 3 because they've been building RPGs for like 20 years, often with the same staff, building up their experience and their collective unity and development practices and tool sets to build a game that otherwise no one else could build. And people loved it. And you don't get a Larian without building an environment where a game studio can exist for 20 years, even when individual games they do fail and don't meet their expectations, don't meet player expectations. That talent still has in them the ability to grow to make this thing that changes a lot of people's personal worlds. People will be obsessed with Baldur's Gate 3 for the next 10 years. The sad fact of it is, because of this increasing space demanding escalation at all sides, even indies are now at the place. They've always been kind of a knife's edge, but even more so than ever, they are being told, okay, make the biggest absolute game you can, regardless of if that is what's best for the game or not. And if the game fails, well, sorry, you're left out in the cold. The game might not get post-launch patches because you don't have money to pay your rent. And players in the meanwhile are saying, it feels like we're being deprived of choices, and it feels like game experiences are feeling more isolated than ever and more like each other as opposed to being distinct new things that I can play. Those are all reasonable conclusions to come to because that's literally what's happening. And it's this voracious late stage capitalism appetite consuming the medium even as it continues to be, I believe, the most prominent revenue generating thing in the world.
Yeah, I think it generates the most amount of any of the, like, especially entertainment sectors. It's the most profitable, or there's the most money in it, not necessarily profitable. It's one of the things that negatively affects developers, at least from my perspective, is you talk about all of these games and development studios being on a knife's edge, and there's a lot of risk involved. I have seen in recent history, from whether it be layoffs and stuff, a lot of the risk and the I guess consequences end up landing on the developers rather than the people who made the decisions, like the upper management and the shareholders, whoever, of these major studios.
Yeah.
And do you feel like that is one of the things that affects that the feeling developers get from being within the industry?
Oh, absolutely. I think a great example is I have friends who have been looking for work in this time. Even if they're already employed, they're looking for the next place to go for one reason or another, to find the best space for their career and to make games that they care about and that they believe players will love. And they're being told by companies, hey, we're all going back to the office. You really want to come back to this office culture too. It's so great. And then a few weeks later, layoffs happen. Mm-hmm. That happens to people, and this isn't a new thing. I had friends who had, when Telltale was still in operation, the original version of Telltale, they had literally moved their entire lives out to California. They had been at their job for a week, and then Telltale shut down. And so they're just left out in the cold. The feeling of lack of safety is not a great one for building, especially new things. So you might see even on the indie side of the industry right now, people seem to be making the same general types of games. We still do see wild invention and big swings and new genres, but I'm seeing a deck builder. I'm seeing a city builder. I'm seeing a fairly standardized picture of what a game is. That didn't seem to be the case for indie for a long time. And it's because you need money. And if the people who have money end up defining what games get made more so than players. So again, players say, hey, we love big open world action RPGs, single player. We still love that stuff. A big corporation can still say, well, we don't want to put money behind that. And so that type of game doesn't exist. It's very cause and effect, which is why when I talk to players, I say, hey, if you want more different types of games, then you both buy and ask for more different types of games, because the numbers and the sentiment does get noticed. And every time a financial entity, shall we call it, whether it's a corporation or a publisher, thinks they can get away with saying, we don't make this type of game won't do well, and then by virtue of that type of game doesn't get made, so it will never do well. That just deprives the players of choice, and it's a real shame.
It's got to be infuriating for developers, because you're talking before about how they're the ones who are pushing for these kinds of games to be made, whether it be more of these like RPGs or what, because I mean, shocking revelation, but game developers also play video games, so they
no way
they know what they know what gamers generally they can take a pretty good test of like figure out what people actually want. It's got to be infuriating when you're telling these publishers or corporations or whoever, this is the kind of games we should be making, and then they force you to make a different kind of game, and then you also have to face the consequences when their idea didn't work. And I gotta imagine like that can't be good for developers, like long-term, mental health as well. Just like, I spend all this time making these games that I know aren't gonna do well, and then I have to hope the coin doesn't land on tails and I lose my job.
The sad thing is, it isn't just developers, it's everyone. Everyone at their jobs right now is facing layoffs and horrid conditions that just become increasingly worse, like a frog boiling in a pot. As a developer, I live outside of a development hub. I'm based in El Paso, Texas, which is part of why I made a game called El Paso Elsewhere, because I love this town. It's my adopted hometown at this point. And I saw the price of eggs. You could get like a carton of 60 eggs for $5 pre-pandemic. And in the course of 3-4 years, that carton is now $15. And at one point it was $20. And that's just been set as the price now because people, quote unquote, can pay it. And in the meantime, people are suffering and the margins get tighter and tighter. I have a lot of sympathy and empathy for my fellow developers who are forced to make the best games they can under wider systemic decisions that may be impacting that game's ability to be what they feel based off their expertise and creative spirit it should be. But the thing that I think is really important to raise is that it's happening to everyone, everywhere. And so this is not just a boo-hoo game developers conversation. It's a people who work in fast food need to get paid better and treated better. People who work office jobs are also experiencing the crunch, and it's all the same factors and shareholder interests that are grinding us all down. And one last thing, as far as the conversation around what games you're forced to make, I think it's really important to point out that this is something that it's really important to separate the skill of a developer from the games that they work on as a result. Because some of the best known, most beloved game developers and indie game makers have worked on games at one point or another in their careers that were 2 out of 10s, 4 out of 10s, 5 out of 10s, disappointing, broken, janky in one way or another. If you were to look at that developer's resume and say, oh, that person will never make a good game because they didn't happen to work on The Last of Us or on Skyrim or something that is recognized and beloved, you would lose out on their talent. And that's part of why I think it's really important to talk about individual developers and their creation process, because then you start to say, oh, I mean, let's say even say for my career, I have worked on games that were seen as garbage. Games where when I got called in, there was once an assignment I had where me and 2 other award-winning, award-nominated writers, all of us, award-winning, award-nominated, were brought into a room by a publisher. They said, hey, the story of this game is so bad, we cannot put this game into the world unless you 3 fix it because of the state it's in. It would be a reputational risk for the company. And it took all 3 of us, I think, a span of 6 to 9 months to tackle a problem where we could not change the order that characters spoke in or the expressions on their faces. And we had to we could change the name of characters, we could change what was in their dialogue boxes. We could not change the number of dialogue boxes, the order in which they spoke, or the expressions on their faces, and we had to insert into that existing space new narrative.
That's insane.
It took us 6 to 9 months.
Just actually a patch job. That's incredible.
We put the game out, it got 6s out of 10s, and every review was like, this game is not good. But the story's pretty decent. It had a couple of lines that made us laugh. And like,
hey, that's pretty good.
that's the way that like...
considering everything you just told me, like, that's not that bad.
And that's the thing of like, if you look at a developer or studio that goes down, I sometimes see praise from players of like, yeah, finally, the bad developers go out of business and the good developers stay alive. And it's like, no. The person who is part of that studio that just went down might have done your favorite quest 2 games ago. They might have built your favorite cutscene either a game ago or in the future.
Yeah.
They just happened to be a part of a studio that was closing or a project that didn't go well. And unless you give those people a chance to exist long term, they can't keep making the games you love, which is why there were some BioWare layoffs last year. Among them was several of the writers who did people's favorite romances. And I wish the BioWare team that's still there the best. I hope that Dreadwolf is what people want it and need it to be. But like, what is a concrete matter of fact is that BioWare is not just a name. It is at different times a collection of different developers. The people who made some of your favorite things for BioWare in the past are no longer there because of some corporate greed shenanigans.
I mean, yeah, you only have to point to studios like Arcane with Redfall as like an example of that. Like people like critically like incredibly panned game, but like their history, and you look at the developers that are there, and these are like some of the most talented people that you could think of. And then it's not Redfall isn't because these developers were lazy or didn't have the talent or the expertise to be able to develop a game. It's all of these like factors that go into how a game actually releases, especially in AAA when you're working in these like insane budgets and timelines and all sorts of requirements as well.
One of the things that I know the most about, just because I came from the writer background, I went from journalist to writer to narrative designer to increasingly like narrative director / design director and lead. The thing I can say is, even let's talk about story. Part of it is really skilled people who, just like for any filmmaker or musician, the final thing wasn't the best thing they'd ever made. It's not a science. It's an art and a science, which is even worse. So for a AAA game, which I've now worked in a couple, we write and finalize the story of the game years before the game comes out. We may have an opportunity before launch to calibrate it down and maybe shift around some lines and maybe bring in someone for a pickup. That becomes a lot more complicated if you have celebrity talent. But I think when a lot of people play through a AAA story and go, this is kind of weird, or man, this is an outdated reference, sometimes they're reacting to literally the fact that the game story was done 3 years ago, because that game story has to be turned into cutscenes that have to be animated, at a AAA level. They have to be voice acted. They have to be lip synced. It's processes. And the more processes that get stacked on, the further in advance you basically have to call your shot, and the less you can be reactive to things that come down the line. So making video games has made me love video games more, because when I see something that succeeds, and even more so when I see something that tries and doesn't quite get there but gets part of the way there, I can see the cracks and edges in it and go, oh.
Yeah, you can see the vision in there.
You probably had this outdated reference because you wrote it 3 years ago, and it was really funny 3 years ago, but you were working on a game that took 7 years to finish because of how big it is and how much there is in it. And so now it feels tired and like a bunch of 50-year-old dads wrote it. That's video games, baby.
Yeah. So we've talked about some of the symptoms. We'll go into maybe a little bit lighter, not lighter, but like less pessimistic, shall we say, topics. I'm just interested in what sustainability in game development like looks like for you, and what are some of the things that you've implemented at your studio, Strange Scaffold, to actually make it more sustainable and more healthy for developers?
So I'd say the big thing that we focus on is precise game development. We've had big games that we've worked on. El Paso Elsewhere was 3.5 years. It's a full-on 8 to 10 hour Max Payne spiritual successor. You are a black monster hunter who goes into a haunted motel to kill the villain you loved before she ends the world. That had full voice acting, animated cutscenes, and a full experimental hip-hop horror album that was built alongside the game, in which I also rap. So you've got the game, which took 3.5 years, as well as a full album alongside it, and an even bigger instrumental album by our composer, RJ Lake, who also worked on the hip-hop part of the album. So this is just like a giant thing that we made and managed to ship on PC and Xbox, and it's coming to mobile and other places in the future. So we've got that. And then we've got Life Eater, which is a horror fantasy kidnapping sim, and was developed in 7 months, 9 months if you count when we switched from Unity to Unreal upon the Unity runtime news. So
Yeah.
you got 3.5 years, you got 7 months. The 7-month game is not being given short shrift. It's just designed and built in a very holistic way to say, okay, this is a game we're making in 7 months. How do we make the best game possible in 7 months in a game that fulfills its potential and gives players what it needs? And I think that that's what sustainability means on a wider industry level, is looking at a game, looking at a vision, looking at players it's serving, instead of trying to make every game infinite, because some games are worse when they're made infinite, or making a game limited when it should be infinite.
So it's all about focusing on scope.
Very precise scope, very precise control of budget and timelines, so that the game from every angle, from the business case to the creative level, is just what it needs to be.
How do you see other developers being able to adopt that kind of style of game development, especially in a climate where we talked to a developer not that long ago about when she was trying to pitch her game to publishers, and basically they weren't very interested in looking at any game that was under like 300,000 to develop, because they didn't see enough return. How do you see like other developers in a climate like that being able to implement that kind of thing?
Most often the sad answer is that they died. So, or they transitioned to work for hire. So what happened in 2023 is that Strange Scaffold almost nearly died. We are, I think, one of the very, very few, I know of two, including us, who every project we have made has been on time and on budget. So I thought, especially because I'm growing up as a very, very lower middle class black kid, I said if I establish myself and show that I'm safe hands to put money into when we need support, we'll get it. And what happened was, people looked at the things that we were making. People looked at El Paso Elsewhere, which later went on that year to kick their asses and sell more copies than their other games and be on Game of the Year lists and stuff. They looked at that and said, well, you aren't spending $1 million, so how can you make a good game? They would keep asking this question, is this the game you really want to make? What game do you really want to make? Like, what do you really want to make, though? As if we didn't want to make a game that was precisely what it needed to be and no further. People were for our Max Payne spiritual successor saying, why do people come back? Like, is there going to be like a level up system, or is like XP or
Skill tree?
They asked for skill trees. They asked for a battle pass. And I was like, no, it's a single player third person shooter with a good story. You know, the ones that sold millions of copies years ago. And we managed to, because we had so many, we developed games simultaneously as well. So right now we have, I think, 5 in development. Because we had so many irons in the fire, we were able to eventually find people who understood us, who build things precisely. We found this folks called Frosty Pop, who we're doing a 5-game deal with. We're making other games with other people as well, other partners who get us. We managed to survive long enough to get that. A lot of my friends and compatriots did not. And that's the unfortunate truth of games, is not just you have to always project success because you don't want to be seen as a losing prospect. You don't want to be seen as, well, why did other people pass on you? But also, if your studio is not something like a Arcane or a BioWare, if you aren't a known name like that, then we had as many quiet closures or quiet people saying, I guess I can't keep making games as we did layoffs, if not more. So when you can't find funding to make precise games, guess what? You both don't make precise games and you don't get to keep making games. And I'm thankful that we are in a place where we, for the next few years minimum, we can continue doing what we're doing. But I also know how close we came to not getting there. And it's really urged me to want to double down on the approach we have and say, okay, then we are not going to do the multi-million dollar, if this thing fails, the entire studio falls apart bet. Because we've already seen once that the industry is not willing to meet players or developers and catch them if we fall.
Yeah, it's a hard place to be because like the whole industry is kind of just saying we don't want to invest in this. We want, you know, more returns, etc. I'm just interested in how you see like the industry as a whole changing. Like, or do you even see it changing? To address like some of these like issues, which I think like long term are just going to be completely detrimental to the game development scene as a whole.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things here. First off, we aren't going to see the full implications of this year for a while because games take a while. So 2023, as awful as it was for a lot of developers and a lot of players, because it is the year where a bunch of games that had been in development for 6-7 years landed, then it looks like 2023 was actually a great year for games. We aren't going to see the games that got canceled, the games that aren't going to come in the sort of thin release timelines until a few years down the line because all of those consequences are delayed. The second thing that I think is really important to understand and acknowledge is, I'm going to get a little bit spicy. Is that okay?
Of course.
Go for it.
The games industry didn't crash in 2023, which is possibly going to have more consequences on the medium as a whole and on what players experience than if it had crashed. Because if it had crashed, everyone would have had to go, oh, shoot, we need to change what we're doing right now because we have all experienced horrible consequences for our actions.
Yeah.
Because the market is booming and the business is rotten. We, unfortunately, especially if you're a company of a certain size and with certain priorities, we don't have anything to drive an impetus to change. Because for every horrific money sink, a game just around the corner by the same publisher or platform often is popping off in one of the best-selling games of all time because there's more players than ever and they're buying games consistently. So I would say from my perspective as someone who works in indie and AAA, who runs a studio, who has a uniquely kind of broad, comprehensive scope of people that I talk to and from which I make things, I am concerned that we have done just well enough as an industry that we aren't going to actually change. We're just going to keep doing the same things and sort of tanking the failures because because investors and corporations can afford to, and it's players and developers that are going to be caught in the middle.
Yeah. It's especially hard with the example you brought up earlier with Warner Bros. And their decision-making after Suicide Squad's like failure, where it feels like the message is being beamed directly at them, like, we want more of this, we don't want this, and then they say, but this has the potential to make more money than the other thing we did that did make money and was successful, so we're gonna go with this thing instead and close our ears and our eyes.
That's the reason why indie games have changed a lot over the past few years, because in my time I've seen budgets go from like 100,000, 200,000 to 250 to 500,000 to 800,000 to like $1 million and up. And there's still games that get funded for less than $1 million, but if only because I had a really interesting conversation with a platform holder, and I have friends at several of the platform holders, thank God. And I asked for some straight talk in 2023 as to why we were running into some of the trouble we were. And they said, hey, when every other game that does really, really well gets delayed or takes 3 to 5 years, if you don't delay your games and you don't take 3 to 5 years, the question naturally rises as to whether or not you have the same ambition and ability as those developers.
Oh my God.
It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
If every good, quote unquote, good game takes 8 years to develop, if you pitch a game that takes less than 8 years, then the question is, will you be as good? Will you sell as many copies? So the fear is very present and very, unfortunately, pertinent because of all the games that I am familiar with that didn't get signed and that we haven't seen and that will never exist because they don't match this picture of idealized success, as you said, with Warner Brothers. And it sucks. It sucks for everybody.
I think a lot about people who are just leaving like college or university and wanting to get into game dev in the current climate. And it's hard to even see like an entry point anymore because a lot of those entry point jobs don't exist. And there aren't really.
Yeah.
And then the alternative to that is, okay, well, make your own game, like, you know people that you studied with, etc. But then you go around pitching that game, and everybody's like, "Well, you're untested. This is your budget's too low. I don't see the potential. This isn't like this other game that I played." And I find it hard to see how does that change to make that like still because if you don't have that entry point and if you don't have a way for developers to get their foot in the door, then your industry is just going to be dry of talent in like 15 years because all of the people that are like been in the industry for however long have been laid off and they're like, okay, I'm out of this industry, like I don't want to be part of it anymore. Or they're old and they're retired. Like, you've got no future for your industry because nobody wants to work in it.
That's a little bit of where we're already at because we really, really need seniors right now because we're making $300 million games. We need people who have shipped games before, but we didn't hire juniors 10 years ago, which puts us in this place. However, I will say the place for new students and for entry points is where I have the most hope because that's where I was able to get started and where sort of a very simple logical relationship I think exists, which is that if you spend $1,000 to make a game, you only have to make $1,000 for it to be profitable. So when I started my studio, the reason I finally started my studio, in fact, was I was asking my friends, I was like, hey, Unity is free. Unreal is free. We have asset stores. We have more public accessible resources than ever. The price to get on Steam is only $100. Can you make a game for just $100 now if it's precisely scoped and if it does clever things with the resources it has? Can you make a really special game for $500, $1,000, $5,000, $10,000, $100,000, as long as the game is built to be a $100,000 game doing the most it can with what it has? And everyone told me, well, technically, yeah, but that isn't how it works. Because you're making a game that's too small to be successful. And Strange Scaffold just celebrated its 5-year anniversary doing just that. So where I would tell people is a next step and an entry point and a bright spot for the industry is that all of the tools do exist for sustainability. All the tools do exist for starting your own ship if you see a sinking one. It just looks like a different life and a different way of going about it. It means keeping your day job, which is honestly for the best considering how unstable the industry is. You can, for 2 hours a week, 5 hours a week, 10 hours a week, be building a video game that eventually hits Steam and makes back the money that it maybe needs to. And you get to make different, more experimental games because you don't have $5 million at risk. So download Unity, download Unreal, download anything that makes sense with your brain and build your own gate so you don't have to deal with the gatekeepers that cannot even preserve themselves. I've seen that work time and again. It's worked for me. And at the very least, even if it fails, it hasn't left you as a person and as a creative being on the chopping block. And I think that that's what everyone deserves.
Sweet. Awesome. I think that's a great point to end it on.
Yeah.
A little more uplifting than the rest of our conversation.
You saying that we weren't uplifting for the hour and a half that we spent talking about how corporations and executives are chewing the industry apart from the bottom up?
No, a snake eating its own tail, I can see some positives.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks sick as hell.
Yeah, it's fucking awesome, dude. I'd get a tattoo of that.
I'm just gonna get a tattoo of a snake eating its own tail, and it just says Bobby Kotick on it, and being like, hell yeah.
Fuck yeah, dude.
Before you leave, Xalavier, I'll just let you just shout out anything you want to shout out, like that your studio's working on and the games you're doing, just before you go.
Yeah, thank you so much. So Life Eater, by the time this comes out, will have just come out on Steam on PC. It'll be on itch.io. It's a horror fantasy kidnapping sim about a druid living in modern day suburbia who kidnaps and sacrifices people every year to delay the end of the world on the behalf of a god that he isn't sure exists. So if you want an uplifting game, the vein of this uplifting conversation, you can get Life Eater right now. Tell your friends, wishlist it. That helps us a lot. You can find me at Rit Nelson everywhere, WRIT Nelson, and my studio Strange Scaffold at Strange Scaffold. The last thing I would shout out is I had the opportunity to help a game get shipped that has been trying to get developed for over 10 years. It's called Defender's Quest 2. It's coming out pretty soon, and it's one of my favorite game stories I've ever been able to tell. It's psychedelic, like 70s style, gooey body horror fantasy inspired by like the Gorillaz and Mobius covers. So if that sounds dope, Defender's Quest 2, which is the follow-up to Defender's Quest, which is a much beloved tower defense RPG, it is coming out soon. It's on Steam. You can wishlist it now and follow that adventure too.
Welcome back. What a great interview that was.
Wow.
All right, guys?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah?
Yeah, now we're going to
Yeah.
talk about a game called Vampire the Masquerade's Bloodlines.
Yeah, as voted by you guys. Well,
As-
on Patreon.
on
but
Patreon.
it has been requested by you guys. And if you want to request a game that we check out in an episode of Press Start Turbo, just type it somewhere. I don't know. I'll fucking I just read the comments.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. Did we get like multiple requests for this?
Yep.
Yeah, I was all of them.
Yep, the final 4 that we put up on the Patreon are the most requested games.
Huh.
I read every comment. That means you better be nice to me or I'll cry.
That's the kind of thing you don't want to tell people. But it's interesting because this is such a niche, dinky
This
ass
is not
game.
a niche game. This is not a niche game. This is a cult
It is
classic.
by gamer standards, like
No,
mass
it's
gamer
not.
standards.
This
I don't
is not
think it
by
is.
mass gamers. This is a very popular game amongst people who want to act like that they like old video games.
I would describe
And
it as a
me.
cult classic.
It is a cult
It-
classic.
Shows how little I know.
I remember, some of my friends that play FIFA know about this game because of back
Wow.
then it being
peak.
popular. Because, no, this game is way more popular than you're saying it is. I'm going to be honest.
My ass not knowing.
I don't know if it sold well. Did it sell well?
Not my white ass being uninformed.
It sold not great because it stunk, and then people really like it, and now everybody really likes it.
The thing is, I think, oh man, speculation alert. Woo! I think it's because it was really easily available on Steam when Steam was in its infancy, and then it became popular from there, like from word of mouth, and it was always really fucking cheap.
Yeah.
I don't think I don't think I've ever met somebody who paid more than like $5 for this game. You know?
It's also based on a pretty popular tabletop RPG.
Yeah.
Vampire the Masquerade, or is a World of Darkness? Is that the one?
World of Darkness is the overarching one.
Okay.
World of Darkness is like the series that it is
Yeah.
part of. Let's say.
I'm not gonna go on the tangents.
Yeah, because
I can talk about the
we
shit
could
all
be
day.
here for a while.
Yeah, I could literally talk about World of Darkness all day. I love that shit.
We appreciate your restraint.
I mean, that's my main takeaway from playing the game is how cool the World of Darkness seems, and
Yeah.
very like fleshed out, and
Oh, dude,
some
you
of
have
it.
no idea. This is just vampire. There's werewolf, there's wraith,
Mummies.
mummies. This is a fucking crazy cool universe.
But yeah, before we get right into it, should we just go around and let everyone know how much of this game we played? I'll start because I think I probably played the least of everybody.
Yep.
Full-time job haver over here. I played 6 hours on my GOG record. I got through like the first area and then most of, or at least a decent chunk into the second area.
Yeah, I did. I got to 14 hours. I think I literally just got at the final big area. I don't know how far I am. This game, every time you feel like this game is going to be like, because I thought it was an 8-hour game, but it keeps going and it keeps being really good.
I don't know how much I put into it, but I beat it. So there's that. Yeah.
I played this game a lot. I have 170 hours, and that's not counting time that I've been playing with like overhaul mods.
Yeah. You said this was your favorite game of all time.
This
right?
is my favorite game ever.
Wait, before we get in, I do want to mention real quick, spoilers. There's going to be spoilers. Like, this is a discussion of the game. We're all pretty far in.
We have time
There's
to play
going
it
to be
now.
spoilers.
I'm outta here.
Should we do just a really quick spoiler free before we get into spoilers, though?
And also, we shouldn't spoil
I don't know
it for
what the
Cameron
hell-
because I would be so mad if
No.
the game got spoiled for my wonderful friend Cameron.
I'm not going to do like anything past where Cameron is, but I do want to mention real quick. I'm pretty sure everybody agrees that we recommend this game.
With some
would
asterisks.
Add some I would add some caveats.
No asterisks. You should buy it right now, full price.
I do add caveats, of course, because this is an older game and there is a very good reason why this didn't sell well back then and why
they
it's
weren't ready
kind
for it.
no, like realistically,
This is not a game for everybody.
No.
this is not a game for everybody, and this is a game that had production issues and they are very apparent and it was rushed out and you can really tell.
You can extremely tell.
You have to get a fan patch.
When people talk about like, oh, this game is a little rough around the edge. No.
Compared to this.
This is a game that, even with a bunch of fan patches, does not feel complete because it's just not.
Yeah.
Just this morning, when I played about an hour before we started recording, I had 3 different instances where I had to completely reboot the game because I had died in combat. And when you die in combat, sometimes if you're like swinging, you will respawn and you'll, at least for me, I'll still be in a combat stance. I can't get out of it, and I immediately break the Masquerade.
Oh,
Cool.
So, and it doesn't matter which save I reload, I'm always in combat stance and I can't get out of it. So I have to completely relaunch to fix it.
One of my favorite things while we were, because 10, every time any one of us would play, 10 would be like, hey, I really want to watch you play because it's his favorite game. You know, I
wanna
get
watch
it.
my friends
Thing
enjoy
is,
themselves.
it's so fucking funny that every time I was in a call with you watching somebody else play this game, you'd be like, I've never seen this bug before. Like, every single time.
Oh yeah, you were getting stuck on like
Wooden pallets.
just a weird little like wooden planks. And it's like, yeah, man, I've never seen that. It seems like a skill issue. That was my help.
Yeah, also before people comment, I'm playing the GOG version, which has
I think we're all playing.
patch pre-installed, like an unofficial
fan
one, I
patch.
think. Fan patch.
Yeah.
yeah. GOG loves doing that.
So even with that, I was still encountering issues.
So imagine what it's like unpatched.
Almost unplayable at some points, actually.
Yeah, I don't think that's even possible.
No, it is. It's just.
I mean,
it
I'm
is.
sure
I
it
mean,
is.
people did.
You'll get stuck a lot.
You know, I've played Blood 2. Anything's possible.
Why would you play Blood 2?
Because I was gifted Blood 2 and I
Played Blood 2.
I played
Whoever
Blood 2
gifted it to you is not your friend. I would never make anybody play Blood 2.
You played Blood 2?
No.
Oh. I wouldn't recommend it. It's really fucking bad.
And I went, wow, I've seen gameplay of this and it looks bad.
I love Blood so much. Dude, it's not even just bad. It's like atrocious. But either way,
We're getting really off topic.
Speaking
Vampire-
of blood, lines.
yeah. What?
Oh my god.
Like I was saying, like, spoiler free, I think I would recommend this game. The combat's not great.
Bad, some would say.
Dog
I would say
shit,
it's
some
bad.
would say.
There's a lot of really fucking terrible bugs, even patched.
This is the kind of game that you have to tolerate playing in order to appreciate.
Yes.
I don't think it's as bad as we're making it seem. Though,
I do
disagree.
think it is that bad. I really do think it's that bad.
I think it's worse, even.
I think that as an RPG and as an adventure and as a story and world and just it is so fucking good at those like three things that it is 100% worth it, because I haven't been this engrossed in a story from a video game in a really long time.
A lot of the guys who worked on this worked on Fallout 1 and 2.
And the craziest part is, as well, like, as we were talking, like, just right before recording, I discovered that there's a few things, like, because of my vampire clan that I chose at the beginning, I experienced totally different things than other people.
Yep.
And I'm not even talking about like Malkavian or Nosferatu, because those are basically like
different playthrough.
New Game Plus and Hard. Like, those are not the same playthroughs. I'm talking like Toreador versus Ventru versus, like, you know, these are,
people don't know what this is.
they're vampire clans. I just said so.
Yeah, but it's like,
There's different. I'm not gonna go on the tangent. There's different kinds of vampires.
Yeah, that's it. There's just different. But the thing is, the characters in the game will actually mention, and you will, like, they will mention the fact that you are part of a certain clan, and they will actually give you specific quests for your clan, and you will learn, like, there's so much good ass dialogue, and it is voice acted so fucking well.
The voice acting is so good.
Especially Chinatown.
Especially for the time.
and considering the budget, with exception to Chinatown.
And the fact that I want to say every single line is voice acted. I don't think I've encountered an NPC that has talked to me just out of a dialogue box.
It's all voiced.
No, every single line is voiced.
Which is an incredible feat.
Because there's a lot of dialogue in this game.
Yes.
It's mostly dialogue.
Sometimes somebody starts monologuing at you, and I fucking hate when that happens in a game. I'm like, come on, shut up. I want to play the game. But the thing is, it's so fucking well acted. I don't care. I just want to hear them monologue more because it's so good.
Fun fact about the game. It came out in 2004 along with the Source engine.
Yeah.
They were building this on an unfinished build of Source, and they only picked Source because of the way that the facial animations worked. They said most of the game is talking to people. We're using Source.
Yeah, because like nothing else at the time even came close in terms of facial animation.
Yeah.
And it shows.
It shows.
I don't know if I would say it was a good choice, but
I do think this game looks incredibly pretty for like an older game.
Sometimes depends on where you look.
Yes.
I think the art direction.
The art direction is amazing.
Art direction,
It is.
They nail the atmosphere in a lot of spots, but there are parts where it's like, this looks a little very 2004. I have no budget game.
Yeah.
I love 2004 game, but this is 2004. This is placeholder territory. It does happen once or twice.
Yes. It seems to, for the most part, or at least what I've played, avoid the issue of a lot of things looking the same and being very hard to figure out where you are, which is like an incredible skill that they're like you can, when you're walking around downtown, you can immediately figure out where you are based on the buildings that are surrounding you because of how distinct some of them are. And they've got these like it's really great for navigation, even though like the maps aren't that big, which I think is a bonus to this game, honestly. I'm
considering how much you're going to be running around doing busy work.
You're
and
a
there's
little
no
sprint boy.
Yeah,
but you can be hop.
You can be hot.
See,
That is true.
I did a lot of that.
That's how I got around. I remember streaming this game for people, and they were like, "What the fuck are you jumping around for?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm
go faster.
I'm literally bee hopping, dude."
This is 2004 Source.
The architectural design and using that as monuments to like figure out where you are is excellent. There's the giant Venture building
downtown
or LaCroix building. Sorry.
Yeah.
The skyboxes in this game.
I was gonna say.
Well, okay, they are either the fucking ugliest thing ever, or some of
Chinatown.
I mean, especially like unique areas that you only go to once. They're just like not finished. Just like black void and two boats. And that's
Chinatown, I think, is the worst skybox because it's gray and really ugly. But when I went in downtown for the first time, I remember I was with 10 and I just said, "Holy shit, this is gorgeous!" Like, literally, you can't you see a building up in the air go past the fog.
That's
it's a
the
beautiful
Venture Tower.
purple.
Downtown has a gorgeous look.
Yeah, it's so good. So yeah, I think I would recommend it with a billion caveats.
Yeah, my biggest one, aside from the playability factor, is that You really got to know about Chinatown. Chinatown's pretty fucking rough sometimes, man. As for crackers, we are not the people to talk about this in great length. So I will leave it at saying that it's straight up just racist sometimes.
It's cartoonish when you get to Chinatown. It's a little strange.
It's a lot sometimes. So if you're not comfortable with that, then you should just be aware. Be aware. This is in there.
One of the first lines of dialogue that I got when I was walking around Chinatown was he saw a 16-year-old Japanese girl, and my dude, I had the pleasure of saying, "Are you 18?"
Oh my god.
And
that did not happen on my playthrough.
And then I was curious, so I did it. And then it followed with her talking in broken Japanese.
Oh.
And then one of my dialogue options was, "Wow, your English is awful."
Yeah. And that's one of the more tame moments that I've come across.
It gets bad, dude.
It gets way worse than that.
Tseng is awful.
Yeah.
So I never got to Chinatown. Is this, just for a comparison point, is this like Indigo Prophecy levels of...
Yes.
Of like...
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
But instead of one character, it's an entire section of a game.
It is a quarter of a game.
That's epic. They bringing it back for Bloodlines too?
No. So, all right.
That
Minor
clan doesn't
tangent.
exist
No,
anymore.
this is a good tangent. Go off.
Minor tangent. They do it because they want to get a type of vampire involved in the game called the Kuei Jin. That was written in the 90s. They've been completely ousted from like current game versions because it was a spin-off game of Vampire the Masquerade called Vampire Kindred of the East.
Okay.
It was a bunch of white guys in the 90s writing very Asian culture focused stuff, so it not great. Not great.
Yeah.
There was a lot of 90s edge for World of Darkness, and that luckily they're kind of like toning it down a little bit. Some people are mad about it, but those people are losers.
It's psychotic that the game devs took that particular angle and was like, we could amp this up and chose to like really lean into that for a lot of the NPCs, where they're just like white dude in vocal booth doing really racist impression of Chinese accent saying stupid shit. Like that happens like at least 3 times where that's like the whole character.
Most of the characters that you meet in Chinatown are just a stereotype.
Yeah, but like some of them are a little more tasteless than others, you know? Like some of them are at least human beings. Others exist to make jokes at the expense of a culture.
Yeah, it literally reads as somebody who doesn't understand the culture just fucking
These people are funny.
doing whatever the fuck.
Yeah,
Like
it's
breakfast
rough.
is Tiffany's bullshit kind of thing.
We're the happy homeboys. We're 4 crackers. Obviously, we're not like the best to talk about this.
Yeah.
Just beware that
Because this is the last area you unlock. If you're not aware that this happens, it's gonna really slap you in the fucking face 10 hours into the game.
yeah.
Gotcha.
I really liked how 10 put it before I had started, where he was talking about how like, yeah, morons will talk about how the woke got to this game with the sequel and they're getting rid of it, and you couldn't make a vampire today because of woke, and it's like, fuck off, it was always woke except for Chinatown.
Chinatown wasn't woke.
Woke had a point with Chinatown. Maybe that shouldn't you really shouldn't do that again today.
Cartoonish.
One of the first groups you interact with when you go to downtown is the Anarchs, and like they're this whole like subsect of
Yeah,
They have their issues.
they sure do. We're dipping into spoiler territory, everyone.
I know we're just gonna say, like, if anything of this is interesting to you, just beware. Combat sucks, story amazing, ambiance amazing, and I do think it's worth
Hold on. A way that I always like to describe this game to people, I think playing this game fucking sucks. I think the gameplay is bad, but everything that you get out of playing this game is really good.
It was a labor of love to make it. You have to perform a labor of love in order to get anything out of it.
Through the combat and stealth, because everything else is awesome.
Oh my fucking god. All right, can I go on tangents about the combat in this game?
Oh, here we go. We're in it now.
I've struggled with this game for a multitude of reasons, because I really love the world, the atmosphere, the music, all this stuff is excellent.
Yeah.
And then I've got to go do fucking missions to get to the next point of the story. And for whatever fucking reason, these people were playing their game and they were like, you know what? We need boss fights. And they're
fucking
stupidest fucking things I've ever played in my life.
So fucking ass. Dude.
Cameron,
Holy
it gets
shit.
worse.
I
It gets
can
so much
imagine.
worse.
This guy hit the brother Canker filter.
Oh my god, are you actually
the
at
sewer guy?
Canker?
That's a sewer
Oh my
guy.
God.
Yeah, I fucking hate that
Yeah,
dude.
hate this
get
guy.
fucked. Hey Cameron, if it makes you feel any better, combat in the tabletop also fucking sucks.
Great.
In the newer editions, I'm going on.
I mean, it's not a combat game.
They literally say in their combat section, do 3 rounds and then see, and if nobody's having fun, just try to find a way to get out of it.
Cool.
It feels like it wants to be an action game, like an action
And it
stealth
shouldn't.
game, like Dishonored or whatever. Obviously, wasn't out then. Or Thief.
I don't know
Thief,
if I would
right?
say Thief.
It was made in Source. I feel like they thought that they could pull it off.
Right, but then they have all of these stats and RPG elements to the point where the gameplay of when you're fighting things boils down to stat checks of you fucking spamming click and pressing tab at the right time and then right click to have your buffs going. And it's mindless.
Cameron, you have to remember this is from the same group of people who created Fallout 1 and 2, where you can just miss things sometimes. Like, you can just hit someone at point blank range with a bat and then the game will say you missed. Like,
Oblivion would eat you alive, little bro.
oh, not Oblivion. No, fucking
Or, sorry,
Morrowind.
Morrowind is what I meant to say.
Oh, no, I know. Morrowind is fucking miserable. I hate that game.
I love that game.
At least this game, when you hit something, you hit something.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you do a lot of
But
damage.
I can't believe that's the point we're at
That's
with this.
such a
But
low
sometimes it does
bar.
0
Oh my
damage.
God.
And
It
then
does.
and a big 0
does.
pops up.
It does do that. Oh my god.
the
It's awesome.
stealth as well is just...
Oh, it's not. Don't never make a stealth build. Holy shit.
I made a stealth build, Billy. I
Hey,
fucking hate my life.
Let me give you a genuine tip, Cameron. If you want to do a stealth build, you don't need to play the game. Just actually go back and play as an Nosferatu. Just pump a couple points into obfuscate and just turn invisible and run around.
Yeah.
But also nobody's allowed to see you.
I just played this mission on this to like you go look at the sarcophagus on this boat. And
Yeah.
there's the scene like it opens up.
Oh,
and
you
there's
tried to
containers
stealth
everywhere.
too?
And I tried to stealth it, and there's like
too.
the level is designed in a very obvious way of like okay, there's these high up containers. Here's a wrench right next to this guard. Go chuck it in a direct.
Oh,
Yep.
Okay, Cameron. Cameron, do you want to hear something really cool?
What's up?
I was watching Billy do it, and Billy didn't go all the way to the sarcophagus. He used his environment and looked at it on cameras.
You can actually,
You can just
What?
look it on cameras.
You can go to the bridge
Oh
and
my
turn on the
fucking
cameras
God.
and look at it, and then you turn the cameras off.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Fuck. I literally did that and then didn't see that it told me I was done and then had to fucking stealth away to the sarcophagus anyway. No. Son of a bitch.
Yeah, no.
So really, that's all you need to do? That's
Yeah.
so annoying.
You just need to confirm that it's on board. You guys need to listen.
The game literally tells you you just need to find it, and the moment you find it,
Yeah.
it gives you a tooltip that says, "Oh, I found it."
LaCroix was like,
thought you had
find
to
the
investigate
sarcophagus.
it.
No, he said find the sarcophagus, verify it's on board, and do not open it.
Don't even go near it. He at one point,
And
yeah.
you go on the camera and you see it and you go, yeah, it's on the boat. I'm going to go tell LaCroix it's on the boat.
It took me less than 30 seconds to do that entire mission.
Do you know how many fucking quick saves I used?
Dude,
Oh
same.
my
Dude,
God.
I went all the way
fucking
to
love this game.
I went to the sarcophagus. I
it's
was
the best video
behind
game
it.
ever.
I stood on it, and I didn't get caught. You know how long that took?
Yep. That took so fucking
No,
long.
a lot longer than following his
I'm
instructions.
a Bruja too. I'm not a stealth character.
3 of
Oh
my
my
fucking quick saves were used chucking this wrench behind the security guard, waiting for him to fucking turn around. Half of the time that he turned around, he would do this like fucking quick turn and instantly spot me up on top and started shooting at me.
Yeah.
And it was just like ridiculous shit. And like figuring out that the
Yeah,
bar
this game's not finished.
the visibility, like the way that works is just so stupid because you can be in complete sightlines of some guy, but if you're like not close enough, it's fine. He doesn't see you. The second you stand up or like jump, you're fucked. Like I was jumping between 2 containers, no one was looking at me, and instantly I got spotted. I was like, "What is?"
Yeah, this game's not finished, man.
Yeah, what the
this is not a finished system.
Did you guys do the mission with what's his name? Fat something.
Fat Larry?
I love Fat Larry. That funniest fucking dialogue.
Spelled with the FAT because he knows he's got a weight problem. He doesn't give a fuck.
Dude, that's actually a line in the game.
I love that guy. Voiced by Phil Lamar from a bunch of things like Futurama.
But he has a mission at one point where you have to stealth a full length thing, and I did it full stealth, and I swear to God, I was just walking in front of people's sightlines crouched.
Yeah, same here.
And it did
You're in the dark.
nothing.
That's why.
I was not in the dark. I know for a fact.
The game said you were.
The game says I was, but I know I was
The stealth
not.
meter is really confusing. I will give that to you, Cameron. If you know how it works, it makes more sense, but they also don't really explain it very good.
I figured out how it worked in the process of doing that, and it's like it's a percentage probability of like you being spotted.
That they're going to see you, yeah. You do a stealth check.
Yes, but you're constantly rolling, right? Because every time that you're within the visibility of them or some shit, I don't know. It's dumb, doesn't work properly, doesn't make any realistic, like it doesn't work the way that you think it should intend.
It's not realistic.
Well, it's not even about realism. It's just like how your expectations of how a stealth system works. And obviously mine are like informed by the stealth games that I've played since this game came out. So, you know, my expectations are probably a bit too high for what I should expect out of a game.
Extremely for this game specifically.
But it doesn't stop how infuriating it is to actually interact with it.
Well, let me tell you one thing. It doesn't get better playing most other ways.
Yes.
I played a mostly just unarmed combat guy. And,
You did unarmed?
He was
No,
playing
no.
with,
Here's the thing.
Pop potence and
It was-
punch somebody's head off.
Okay.
It was viable. It was
Yeah, no,
viable.
it is viable.
It just wasn't fun.
I was doing ranged, and I'm going to be honest, guns are not viable.
Really?
Hey,
No,
guys.
they're fucking not.
Hey guys, guess what? None of the combat
Nothing
is
is
viable.
viable.
It stinks.
It's off. I went back and did an armed melee build mid-game because at one point I was like, because the thing is, the reticle for the guns is so fucking giant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're going to miss every shot.
Well, because it also rolls a fucking dice on whether you're going to do damage or not as well.
Even if the
Yeah.
raycast hits the enemy, that doesn't mean you actually hit the enemy.
No, you hit the enemy. It's just going to do a 0.
Oh, true.
You always hit the enemy. It's just that,
Sometimes the bullets are
Sometimes
they're
they
blanks.
soak it.
Sometimes
That's
they're blanks, I guess.
yeah, sometimes they just fucking...
But the more skilled you
Yeah.
are, the less blanks you have in your cartridge.
I felt like a fucking Mormon with every time it brought up soaking. I was like, okay, I get it.
I'll say this. I am glad at the end of the day that it was made in Source because it made skipping shit really easy.
Yep.
It was a blessing to be able to just say, no clip, God mode, get me the fuck out of here. And just take me to the story, man.
I wish I did that.
Did you skip sewers?
I only started skipping things towards the end.
Did you do the full sewers without any, like...
I got about halfway through. A little more than that. I got like 2/3 of the way through, and then I was like, okay, yeah, you know what? Fuck this.
I told Billy, I was like, not only should you cheat here, it's encouraged. This part of the game is horrible.
I did it without cheating, and it is...
Bad.
I just holy shit.
It's really good when you get to the end, though. Whenever
Yeah,
you just get into the fuck ass tunnels, like that place was cool as fuck.
I was watching Billy play, and he got to the haunted tape little quest line, and I was like, oh, hey, by the way, just a heads up, the game's going to get bad for a little bit.
Yeah.
Dude, the horror level,
Which one?
the first one, wherever you have to
mansion?
like, yeah, the mansion.
We need to talk about the haunted mansion
That
segments
game, this haunted house, is really fun.
they keep popping up, and they're so good.
Yeah.
I wouldn't describe it as good. I think time has been unkind to it.
Sure.
Okay, so I'm going to sound like an asshole here, and I apologize, but I don't think there's any way I can properly express how I feel about it without coming off like a dickhead. The number one impression that I came away with after the haunted house section was like, that was adorable.
Yeah.
I was about to say, you kept calling it cute. You were like, I could see what they're going for, but I could tell that they didn't have the time or budget to do what they wanted to.
Yeah, they were punching like light years above their weight with that one, and it was so fun.
It's really fun, and it's super different.
Yeah, no, I was smiling. I just don't think that's how we're supposed to react to that, you know? It felt, oh my God. Okay, it just clicked. You know what it felt like? It felt like playing a better version of those haunted house Gmod maps.
Oh my god, that's
Yep,
so mean,
that's
but I
a really good
agree.
touch point. I
It
think.
was like that, but made by developers instead of someone who's learning how to make video games.
You know what's an amazing tidbit? I'm not sure if this is 100% true because I heard that from 10 who told me it was maybe not 100%, but
This is what journalism sounds like, people.
while they were testing the game, people were so scared of this part of the game that they actually made a skip so they could skip the fucking haunted house.
There is a skip command in the game to skip.
Do you know for a fact? Do you know why it was implemented, or is that just hearsay?
I think it's hearsay. People were like, "Oh, it was so scary in 2004."
They were running out of the cinema during Psycho.
I find that a little hard to believe.
I want to believe it because that would be so adorable.
I mean, either way,
so funny.
Look, if I was this same age, but I played it in 2004, I can absolutely see myself getting a little spooked by it.
What else would have done a haunted house like this?
One part fucking killed me, and it really showed off. It set a precedent for a lot of what was to come with this game. I was exploring the main level of the mansion, and I walked up to a corkboard by the reception desk, and just started looking at the photos that were hung up. And they were like public domain, like sepia tone snapshots of people of ye olden time. And I have the game on max graphics, right? Because of course you do. It's old. You can do that.
Gamer.
But like textures are usually really blurry and shit. These were like 4K textures. I swear to God. It's like,
I know exactly what you're talking about. There's so many times that.
And 10 was watching, and I point this out, and it's like, these are really small, too. So the pixel density is also crazy. And I get 10's attention, and I'm looking at this, and it's like, this has got to be the highest texture in the video game. And 10 goes silent and is like, I think you're right.
Because I think you are.
There was one time when there was a weird gag on a TV screen that was just like, if you're reading this, you're so fucked. Haha, everybody in the club be dancing. And it was just a bunch of psycho gibberish shit.
Cool.
But it was like super high fucking fidelity, and I could read it perfectly.
Yeah.
And it was like the clearest thing in the environment around me.
Yeah, it feels like a Gmod map sometimes. It's crazy.
You mean awesome?
Assets just don't match up sometimes. The physics just goes on the fritz on occasion.
On occasion.
There were multiple times where I was walking through an alley and I would see NPCs like for only 2 frames because they were motion tweening from one end of the map to the other.
Yep.
It was so fucking funny.
I would love to like see a documentary or something about the development of this game, because it seems to me like they had a shit ton of ideas and then a lot of them ended up making it into the game, but how well they were implemented varies wildly. Like there's so much little stuff in this game that is super cool and neat. Like being able to turn on some TVs and they'll have like a fucking news broadcast about some shit you've done.
Oh yeah.
Is like super cool little feature stuff.
That's
that like
one of the best things.
Video game that Tim Kaine was a part of moment.
Like how the hell did this make it into this game? And like what was its budget? And like
even the radio listening, the Deb of Night.
Yeah.
The Deb of Night, dude. I love that shit.
Yeah, that was
fucking
good.
Cool. And like we're in spoiler talk, but it's not spoiler. Like we were all past this, but there's moments in where callers
one specific thing
on the talk show Deb of Night. One specific is like crazy to me, but they will like talk about stuff that is going to happen.
Yeah.
Or they will have characters that you haven't seen yet call in to the Deb of Night.
If you're like, the world's gonna end, by the way, dude, the world's fucking ending, but he says it a lot more poetically.
Yeah.
And then you meet him and he is a very cool character.
It's so cool. This game is so cool.
Even the more the typical video gamey stuff, it was always a pleasant surprise for there to be a TV on in a room that I went to, and then to hear the newscaster explaining things that I had just caused in the last mission I played.
Exactly.
Because it is newsworthy. I did just fucking blow up a warehouse. I guess they would be reporting on that.
Yeah. It's the game is full of stuff like that.
It's the little things.
it is the little things.
It's the little things that make the big things tolerable.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm God, that's the realest shit I've heard tonight,
yeah, exactly.
man.
I wish this game was a fucking walking simulator or turn-based. And
No.
like
I mean,
I don't agree.
It shouldn't be turn-based.
I think there are a lot of ways you could have fixed this. I don't know if those are the best ways, but I think that it's not hard to have something more tolerable than what we got, because it was a bunch of ideas, most of which were good on paper, all of them which were executed poorly. So it's kind of the bar is so low. It's just a shame because, as 10 once put it to me, if they had a little more time, maybe scoped down a little bit more, honed in on a few other things, this could have been one of the best games ever made instead of 10's favorite video game.
But it's the best video game ever made in my heart.
Oh, bless.
It's really made me want to like try the tabletop game because the world itself
I'm your man.
It's so fun.
It's just so excellent. Like,
I really like it.
I mean, this is again, we're in spoiler territory, but like the way that the classes are justified in terms of the clans, sorry, are justified in terms
cares?
of like the lore.
I do.
But they're
does.
classes.
True.
Shut up.
They're not classes.
They're not classes, though.
Oh my god. Sure.
Jesus Christ.
They're not classes.
But they're your descendants from like what is it? One of the is it 5 or
Antediluvians. There's
Yes.
13 of them.
13, and so each of them have like specialized like bloodlines, as the game the title would say, that inform.
Bloodlines are different from clans. My fucking face is turning red.
But from the world bits, that
I'm
I've
gonna
got in
talk about the
game, it
tabletop.
informs it, does it not? Am I wrong?
He's frothing at the mouth. He's vibrating,
I am
but you
a
have to
little
use a
bit.
magnifying glass to see it.
All right, 10, correct me then. Jesus.
I don't even remember what I was going to correct you on. You just called them bloodlines. Clans and bloodlines are different things.
Okay, but it is like, descendants from those are the reason why that you like vampires look different than other ones, etc.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a very, very well realized world.
Yes.
And learning about it. And the main thing for me that made me appreciate it is that there are a lot of really fucking boring universes, especially nowadays, that are really caught up in the minutia of lore building. And I get that some people like that, but personally, I'm fucking sick of it because most of it is meaningless or has been, conglomerated and reinterpreted so many times that it no longer had the meaning that it was originally created to have. And now it's just, a bunch of tidbits and things about this fake story that don't matter. I care about stories that mean things and, have points to them. And so what was so refreshing is that Vampire was a very densely packed world full of minutia and details, and all of it is relevant. It is all really thoughtful,
Yes.
well executed, and intentional in how it is written, and except for Chinatown. And it's really fucking great.
It also tells introduces the world to you in a very. It doesn't fall into the pitfalls of just lore dump after lore dump that are
Right.
No, they ease you into it.
The start of the game is perfect because it assumes you don't know shit. It's like, well, you're a new vampire. Of course you don't know shit.
Yeah, no.
But it doesn't just like dump that shit on you like you're
Exactly.
a fucking moron. Like it lets you discover things on your own.
The characters will literally tell you, look, you're going to have to learn some of this shit on your own, man. I don't got the time to tell you about our politics right now.
He literally Smiling Jack like 3 or 4 different times at the tutorial. He goes, "Oh, that's just a bot. You'll fucking figure out about him later, dude."
He literally, like, there's options where a normal game would be like, okay, now you get to ask more and find everything out about the world, and there's no more discovery to be
No,
made.
but characters are like, dude, I'm busy. Go fucking find
He's like,
out
I don't want to
something
fucking
else."
talk about politics. Go find someone else who cares. Like, that's just
It's so sick.
It's so good.
One of my favorite things is that I'm pretty sure if you want to, you can just like not ask.
Yeah, you can just
absolutely.
not give a shit.
You can play the game as a know-nothing.
You can literally learn nothing and go through the game and never ask questions and just do what you're told. And that's,
I mean, you're going to get what's coming to you if you go that route, but it is
obviously, like-
absolutely a thing you can do.
Yeah.
But it's great because there's a lot of, I find issues in some RPGs where they do this, where when they give you a lore dump, it's all very like factual and dry. Whereas even in the scenarios where you are learning more about the world, it's informed by the characters that you're talking to.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, I'm talking to an anarch about like the world and like the certain
Camarilla.
classes, clans, and he'll give you the perspective that he has, Nines, right? But then you go talk to the Venture,
Ventrue.
Ventrue.
and they'll give you the same general information, but it's heavily skewed by their beliefs and stuff like that,
And their
it's-
political
Yeah.
standings.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's excellent. Like it's really just excellent.
The thing I love about Vampire as a whole is even the tabletop game describes itself as a personal and political horror.
Political horror is a great way of describing this game.
It is a political horror game.
Everyone fucking sucks.
Vampires are the worst. That's
it's
kind
just,
of the
it's
point of the
miserable.
game.
It's fucking miserable. No one is right, and everyone sucks.
And also, everybody who thinks they're right, it's actually being used as the pawn of a vampire who's like 3,000 years older than them and also probably dead or asleep.
Or worse yet, they think they're right, and they're like the most wrong, and also the ones trying to get power. And that's your problem now.
Oh, dude, I fucking love Vampire.
There's just so much going on with Vampire. It's fucking phenomenal.
Again, I'm about to contradict myself, and so I must stress that this is me just shitballing here. I'm not actually saying that this is realistic or I'd really want this. But in a perfect world where I got everything I wanted forever, it would have been really cool to see a scaled up version of this game that had more clans. But I understand why they didn't, right? Because they were very intentional with which ones they included, because they all hold very, very, very contradictory views on the world.
They're also the Core 7. But.
And so they do a great job of, presenting contradictory opinions and putting you at the center of it. They all have really valid reasons to, believe and act on the things that they do, except for Chinatown. And it's really, really interesting to hear. I mean, like, the Camarilla is the one that impressed me the most, right? Because, I mean, it's the Corpo people. It's
the Ivory Tower fascists.
Yeah, it's Ivory Tower fascists. Actually, yeah, I can't put it any better than that.
Julian, I know the setting.
And yet, they have some really fucking good points to justify their existence. Motherfuckers will say, look, we live in the smartphone age. Everyone on Earth has a camera. Regulation is more important now than ever. And I'll be honest, I really can't fucking come up with a good argument against that. Like, yeah, you can't just trust anarchy with this. Like, yeah, it's fucking awful.
I mean, the Masquerade needs to be upheld, and everybody agrees, obviously.
Yeah, it has to be upheld, and you can't trust every single individual to just do that. The absolute number one example of that is the fucking sicko faction that keeps breaking it all the time. Yeah, the Sabbat.
They're a medieval death cult, vampire supremacist group.
Yeah,
they want to openly rule as vampires, and that's why they're not really around in the current version of the tabletop. Because Julian, you'll love this, the camera phones thing.
Yeah.
In the year that this game takes place for the tabletop game, the government like full blown like kind of breaks the Masquerade and like finds shit, and they start a second Inquisition.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome.
To like hunt them down. But it's really fragmented and like doesn't go super high up in government agencies because they're worried that there are vampires really high up in government agencies that will get on them for it.
That's so funny.
So they like work in tandem with the church.
That's so awesome.
It's so sick.
I want to talk about a tidbit that I think is so fucking funny and kind of cool. Hollywood vampires were made by actual vampires to spread lies to vampire hunters.
Yeah.
That's so cool. That's such a good bit.
The Camarilla made the movie Nosferatu because they were like, oh, the fucking... Now it's not a little freak. It's just like, wow, that guy really likes Nosferatu.
Garlic.
Yeah, oh, dude, I hate garlic. It would really fuck me up if you came in and tried to kill me with a cross. Because then a vampire hunter comes in with garlic and a cross and you rip their fucking head off.
I will say, the boss, wherever he's so devout that he can use it, but the effect it has is he just throws a cross at you and you get flashbanged for a moment is pretty fucking funny.
That's also a thing in the actual thing. True.
I know, you told me, but it's again, the manifestation is what cracks me up, is that this guy believes in God so hard that when he pulls out a cross, you just go blind for a little bit. Like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
Oh!
He believes in God hard enough that it actually works.
This dude believed in God so hard that he made my eyes hurt really bad for a second.
All that to say, good fucking game. Well,
really cool fucking setting.
Good fucking
best setting ever.
Good setting. Really good realization of the setting as well. That's the main thing. Is like it's taken these like RPG elements, or not RPG elements, but like it's taken
it is an RPG, yeah.
The role playing elements of the game and really done well with that and the world and the characters. It's just the game part of the RPG is the worst.
This is a gateway drug to the coolest setting that I've ever interacted with.
My favorite thing about this game is that it is extremely dense and realized, and everything that is included has something to say either about the world or about politics, because it is a parody of its real world analogs.
And it's meaningful. It's meaningful things that they're saying as
It
well.
has a lot of interesting things to say and fun observations, and it has a great time doing it. And that's fun.
Except for Chinatown.
Except for Chinatown.
It doesn't have anything to say about the real world. It's just vampire escapism.
Yeah, it's not that deep, bro.
Thanks for joining me, guys, for this.
Just you?
episode.
Just you.
Just me.
Just you.
Just me.
Guys, sorry
if
for
you-
joining me, guys.
Sorry you guys had to hear that.
Sorry about Chinatown, guys. It was a different time.
We're not having an episode next month.
No, because it's my wedding. I'm
wedding.
not.
Fuck, is that a month away?
It's less than a month away.
Crazy.
Yeah, I know it's crazy. I'm literally pissing my pants.
Oh my god, dude, can you show me?
Okay. The next one after that are we doing unions?
Unions. Yeah, we talked to someone from a union.
Boy, oh boy.
Yeah, another
Who would've
serious
guessed?
topic. We're going to be talking unions in games journalism.
Breaking new ground on this show.
Yep. And if you want to request a game for us to check out like we did today, just leave a comment. I'm going to have a top comment as well. Send it however the fuck you want. I'll
Carry a
find
pigeon.
it, dude. I'll find you.
And then join the Patreon if you want to vote on the final four.
Join the Patreon even if you don't want to vote. Join the Patreon. Join the Patreon?
Hey, famous YouTuber Julian said so you have to.
This show is supported pretty much 100% by you guys right now. So if you like it, I do think, yeah, share it around, you know?
We stand money here.
No, I fucking don't. But either way, so I think for the next vote, I'm gonna put in Signalis, Monster Hunter, Amid Evil, and I don't know what else.
Vampire the Masquerade Redemption.
Hitman 3.
Hitman 3. All right, we'll do those.
Hitman 3.
We'll do those for it.
Thanks everybody for listening. We'll catch you on the next one.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Mwah. That's a little special treat just for you. Hey, thanks so much for listening. This episode would not have been possible without the help from our patrons, such as Alan Diver, Art of Ogden, Bland But Funny, Boopaloo, Brain Soup, Cassandra Crash, Chips, Chris Chapman, Christian Van Engen, Dog Named Bear, DX Studios, Echo Stalker, Eric Scott Gillies, Ethereal, Geef, Generic Phoenix, Guy Beam, Lambda Man, Leo the Geotech, Mr. Starchy, Mr. Shirt, Random Diamonds, Rat Supreme, Rocco the Raccoon, Ryan Rocket, Smeet Mono, Spherical May, The Frost Ace, Ulbert, Winnie Rab, Will9455, and Woodstock. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.